It's giving shade.
It's giving dirty.
It's giving what if. Hey listeners, before we jump in today, I would like to share a disclaimer. The views and opinions in this podcast episode are 100% strictly my own. They do not reflect any professional organization, business, or board with which I am associated. The content of this podcast is for mature audiences only. Listener discretion is advised. Let's jump in. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of It's Giving What If. And so I'm super excited. The first episode was fun. I got to travel back to my childhood and my earlier years. Now we're like moving a little into my college years. And today's guest played a really big part in those years. And we'll kind of get into that in a little bit. But I would like to welcome everyone. Please help me welcome Stacy. Hey, Stacy, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
So good. I'm so glad. Like we were just saying, like this has been a thing for years. I haven't been able to see you, and just seeing you and remembering everything is pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's as if years have not passed. It was funny logging in. I was like, oh, there he is.
Yeah. And I mean, like we've been through a pandemic. You were at the heart of it. Like, yeah. I mean, life has really gone by.
Yeah. It's like a 3-year time warp for me. All of a sudden, I'm like, oh, that person had a baby while I was gone, and now that baby's going to preschool. Wait, what? Like,
yeah.
It's like a 3-year time warp. I don't know how it's like for you guys all in the States, but certainly me coming back, I lost years of my life.
Yeah. For those of you that are wondering where I met Stacy, so I met Stacy working in Burlingame at summer camps, and it was one of these things. I was like, let me apply for this. This seems fun, not knowing what I was getting into, but it definitely was a different like world, and like I got to be a camp director. And it was just like really like a fun time. It was a really creative opportunity for me to just like lean into my creative side. And I got to meet a lot of really awesome people. So share a little bit about your Park and Rec like background. And this was like pre-Parks and Rec, the show. So this is really like before that became a thing.
Yeah, well, we can talk about that too. That's such a disappointment to me. Show, and I'll explain why. So I was a camp counselor too, like you. I got to attend summer camp twice when I was in middle school, and I fell in love with it. And I was always sad I didn't get to do resident camp. And so when I graduated from high school, I got a job on the peninsula working at summer camp, and I just was in my element. It was so fun. I mean, we worked crazy hours. You're like working from like 7 to 6 every day. You're juiced up on Kool-Aid and camp snacks.
Yep.
I came home filthy and tired of it. I mean, I think I would just like walk in the door filthy, eat dinner, shower, pass out, and then just do it all over again.
Yeah.
So I did that. I worked for the YMCA for a few years, and then was in college, and I was majoring in English and was going to be a high school English teacher. And then someone said to me, you can be in recreation full time. You could get a job. And I was like, no. And so I did the research. I ended up having a double major, and majored in Parks and Recreation, and then got a job right out of college. I got my internship with the city of Foster City, and then had almost 8 amazing years there with my internship, and then moved on to Burlingame and had about 2.5 years there in recreation. And I just loved it. I loved the field. I still have like kind of that aching feeling to kind of go back into it. There's some reasons not to, because it can be really draining, but
yes,
I loved it. And I loved running summer camps. Like you guys taught me, I think, a lot more than you even know working with my years.
Yeah, and it's just like one of those things. Like I did not know what I was getting into, and then just really kind of seeing how the thrived and loved and looked forward to like the experience of being free and just playing was a beautiful element, honestly.
I think you just hit it. It really connects these young adults back to their childhood and playing, and even kids maybe who didn't have that opportunity. giving them the opportunity to play, but also mentor young people. You learn a lot about yourself as a young professional. I always approached it really, I would say to rec leaders, like, when they made a mistake about something, I'd say, well, in the real world, you probably would have gotten fired for that. But here in this environment, I'm going to take the opportunity to teach you about maybe what not to do so you don't get yourself fired when you're in the real world. And so I really enjoyed that part because it made me be a little bit more reflective, more forgiving, more calm. Not always. And, I'm a type A control freak. Like, I admit that there's a lot of stuff about, life that I've got to control it. I've got to be in charge. And when you're in a type of program like that and you have all these young adults working, you have to release a lot of that control and you have to trust these people. And it taught me a lot about, like, well, then you have to empower them. You have to hire the right people and you have to empower them and give them the tools and the skills they need. And then just let them do their job. Like, get out of their way if you can, as best as you can. And that part for me was a huge personal challenge, but I always just felt like I ended the summers so proud of the people that we hired, and I missed you guys terribly. Like, the month of September was always so depressing because I was like, they're all gone,
Yeah. All right.
I have to share with you too something that for both the communities when I came in, I thought was interesting of staffing is there was a lack of diversity of the type of people they hired. So a lot of times it was just kids straight from the community, and I understand that. But because both of those communities were so small, kind of insulated, it was a goal too to, like, bring in different diverse people, different diverse thoughts from different communities, because that is what makes, like, a real camp experience. Because it wasn't like that city was only serving kids from that community. There were kids from all over the place that were coming, and I always found it so fascinating when kids who might never, like, kids, I mean you guys, young adults, might never meet. You never would have crossed paths. All of them become the best of friends. I think that also was something, and then we'd share with my colleagues in other cities, like, it was so important to hire just diverse groups of kids from different experiences, so that it was also kind of a sample experience of what it would be like to be in a workplace, because it's people with different thoughts, different ideas, different cultures. And it was just always so fun to watch how all the players would come together, and you're like, wow, I never thought those two would become the best of friends, and look at them, or there's actually I wasn't the director at the time, but when I worked for one city, there's two rec leaders that ended up getting married, having kids.
Oh, wow.
City, they ended up dating after I left, but two recreation leaders meeting at camp, getting married and having kids. Like, that's always fun to know that that's where they started. And I like to watch them be parents now.
Yeah, I'm, like, trying to think if there's any in our group that, like, got together and ended up married or anything. No, I think most of them dated outside of it.
Yeah.
But it is a very interesting, I mean, you spend your summer with these people, and so you really do bonding. You have to learn to trust them. One of the things I remember is, like, there were a lot of the learning curves, right? So, like, you would, you had people who had never had responsibility, and you give them responsibility over a small group of kids, and they learn a lot real quick. And so I just remember, like, you learn from your mistakes. And that's the number one thing I would tell people in that setting is, like, you're going to make a mistake and you're going to learn from it.
Yeah. People would ask me, don't you, like, freak out? You're sending these young people out with all these kids in a field trip. And I'd say, no, because, we've had these intense conversations. We were one of the only programs in both cities that still required almost 40 hours of training before we even put you out with kids. And even then, we tried to really stagger who we hired so that it wasn't all brand new staff. There were definitely going to be people there that had more experience in these situations. And I thought to myself, you know what? I was 18 out and about with a bunch of kids. I think it's sad sometimes that society doesn't trust our young adults the way that they should. And when we don't give you those opportunities to get out there and experience something new or face a challenge and really think through the situation, then we're just hurting you. You know, we're just hurting these young people that this is their opportunity to learn that skill before they go off and become professionals. And you know, we joked one year, it wasn't in Burlingame that I did this, but in another city, the other coordinator I worked with, we joked about getting those bracelets, you know, the plastic bracelets of the time that were really popular with slogans. Instead of saying, like, what would Jesus do? We were going to put, like, what would Superstar and Smee say? You know? Because quite often the recreation leaders would come up to us and be like, I had this situation with a parent, or this is coming up, and I don't really know what to say. And we learned to respond like, well, what would we say? And all of a sudden, and I think you probably did this with me too, you would say all the right things in a way. You would think through, well, you know, I would do this, and then I could probably say this, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you know the answer. Now go do it. You know, so oftentimes you guys already knew how to respond to situations in a very professional way. And so I trusted that you could do it. You know, we didn't have any significant issues. And the funny part is we would sit in these big council meetings at the end of summer with all the cities from around the peninsula, and we would hear some real nightmare stories. Like, wait, your rec leader set a classroom on fire? Like,
what?
Wait a second, wait, you actually lost kids on a field trip? Like, oh man, you know, and granted, these were much bigger programs than ours. And then they'd look at us, and my coworker and I'd be like, yeah, we didn't have that problem, you know, like maybe the biggest issue would be, it's not that it was all fun and games. I mean, I've had staff just not show up, a staff not get a vacation approved and then took a vacation anyway, and then posted all over social media and told me that they were homesick. Yeah, no, I can see you on social media.
Yeah.
There you go. You know, I had someone, he didn't even make it through orientation when this was in your time, brought alcohol.
Yep.
An overnighter. And I had specifically like laid in about how important this was. It was such a privilege to be able to take you guys to an overnighter and have that bonding experience. And that person was terminated the next day. But on the flip side, I was so proud of the rest of the staff who were brave enough to turn in the peer.
Yeah.
You know? Instead of just kind of hiding it and pretending like it didn't happen.
Right.
The staff came forward and said, this happened last night and we wanted you to know. And I couldn't have been more proud, because that was a big thing for me to ask peers to do, to rat out their peer, their friend.
Yeah. I think that's hard because, like, you know, you build this bond, but you also kind of understand that we had to keep each other in check and be responsible for our own actions within our own little group. And so it was a really cool dynamic to just see people be accountable like that.
Yeah. And I was so angry and frustrated with that person. But then on the flip side, I thought, you know what? These young people just did something that was so significant. It shows their moral compass. And they did something that's super difficult. I mean, I think quite a few people still stayed friends with that person because that was your friend, but you also realized they violated the rules right away and jeopardized everyone's ability to, you know, have this experience. And I couldn't be more proud. You know, that's a difficult situation to be in. And here I was asking 16 to 22-year-olds to be accountable, you know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So after your camp years, you moved away from the U.S. completely.
Well, I did. I spent some time. So when I left recreation, I went back to school. I became a nanny. That was so fun. I became a nanny for these twin girls. And initially, I did not want to take care of twin girls, especially 8-year-old twin girls. I was like, no. But they're still very important in my life today. They just graduated from college this last year. We're very close.
Whoa.
Yeah, I was with them for 6 years. By the time they got to me, they'd had 7 nannies. So I
Oh,
was their final nanny. I stayed around. They used to call me Nanny McStacy. I was a lot like Nanny McPhee to them, they said. And then I worked at a farm, which was a blast for 2 years. It was super fun. And then I became a director of a small preschool. And it was like 20 years almost to the day that I had graduated from college. And all of a sudden I'm like, wait a second. I'm back running a preschool? Like what? Working in preschool? Because I worked in preschool as an undergrad and I loved it. But like a lot of people who lived in the San Francisco Bay Area, it's nearly impossible to make ends meet if you're a teacher and you're single. My rent was going up almost 20% every year. Wow. Not my salary. And so I was just facing this dilemma. And by 2013, I just knew like, I'm going to have to leave. And I researched, like, if I want to stay a teacher, where could I go that I could afford to be a teacher? And really nowhere on the West Coast, because people would say, oh, well, you could move to this city. And we're like, sure, rent's cheaper, but so is the salary. You know, the salary is significantly lower. So it still doesn't change my situation.
right.
So in 2013, I decided, okay, I'm going to have to leave the Bay Area and it's going to be in the next 2 years. And so I spent the next 2 years researching what I wanted to do. And a high school friend of mine was teaching internationally, teaching high school science. And I was asking her if these like recruitment agencies were scams, you know, because they collect money from you. And she's like, nope, they're legit. I applied. I got offers at a few different places, but I decided to accept a position in Shanghai.
Wow.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's so wild. Like out of everywhere you could have gone.
Yeah, still crazy to me. But I have a love that's very, very deep for Shanghai. And, you know, I just had a lady asking me today, like kind of interrogating me a little bit, but you lived in a communist country. And I was like, yeah, but you know,
lady, get over it.
I said, our country's kind of just as corrupt in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And she, you know, and I said, well, if you think about it, you know, like you want to be separated from your government, right? Like you want people to see you separate from the decisions your government makes. And I said, you know, when you live in another country, you really have to think about the people versus their government. And do I agree with everything that's happening there? No. Do I agree with what we're doing here in this country?
No.
No way. You know, like, I don't know. I think we could bird teetering on some really nasty stuff. And it's not new. It's centuries old, the things that we're doing. So it was an interesting conversation with her. And I just turned it back to, listen, you know, I lived in a city that's like New York City. I mean, it is fabulous. I never would have had the opportunity to live in one of those major cities in the US. You know, I couldn't afford to live in LA, San Francisco, Chicago, New York, Philly. I couldn't anywhere that I would get that like work-life experience to live and work in a major city. And I had that in Shanghai. And then on another reason to go, and I said this to her for the first time in my adult life, so I was 40 when I left, I was not afraid of my personal safety.
Love that.
At all. You know, I could take the metro at midnight and not worry about my safety. I could walk home by myself. I wasn't carrying my keys in a defensive manner.
Right.
One time I even left the keys, not once, probably multiple times, in my door.
Oh, no.
You know, but like, and it really wasn't a big deal.
Yeah.
So, you know, when I told her that, I think she understood from woman to woman, like, yeah, you know, for almost 8 years of my life, I did not worry about my personal safety, other than maybe I shouldn't eat that street food. That might make me sick, you know?
Right.
Or I'm going to wear my mask because that person is picking their nose and holding on to the metro line, and I'm going to like, ugh.
Yeah.
But no. You know, it was a wonderful experience, and I would still be there, living and enjoying life, except COVID happened.
Yeah. And so what did that do to you? Like just living through all of that?
Year one, I call it COVID 1.0. We knew something had happened. So at international schools, you have like 3 to 4 weeks off over the winter break. And so we got back from winter break and we had, I think, like a 2-week window before it was going to be the Chinese New Year celebration there. And when you work in an early childhood center, like we're monitoring kids' illnesses. So that's not unusual, like, because we know flu season's coming and we all
Right.
want to stay healthy and keep the place clean. And so when I got back, I'm checking in on all the teachers. So at the time I'm a teacher, but I'm also the coordinator of the ECE. So it's just supporting them in curriculum and just in general, the whole division, supporting them and kind of being that middle person between teachers and admin.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm checking on kids' symptoms and illnesses in the rooms. And we're just kind of trying to be proactive. And my local staff start talking about, hey, something's going around over winter break. It's this like strange pneumonia. There's like a pneumonia that kids are getting. And we're like, what? Okay, so we're documenting more. We're we're asking our local staff a little bit more because their children at the local preschools, like, what's going on? Tell us a little bit more. And so they're feeding us more and more information. And over 2 weeks, we find out the local schools are going to close. They're going to close the preschools because of this pneumonia. They're really worried about the preschoolers. So as Western staff, we start talking about, well, what would happen if we have to close an extra week over Chinese New Year? We have to close longer. That's so weird. And so we discussed as a team what it would look like if we had to go online for school. Like, what could we do to support families if we had to like close an extra couple of weeks because of this pneumonia? It was.
Right.
We had a plan. It was like the Wednesday before we're leaving for Chinese New Year, we had a plan. And then our head of school, great guy, comes down to talk to us. He's like, hey, so we might have to close the ECE longer. Because that was the only thing they were talking about. The government was talking about closing down the preschools for an extended period of time. And keep in mind, like local Chinese schools closed for about a month for Chinese New Year. So it wouldn't have been unusual for us to close a little bit longer. Probably our Chinese families would have loved it, right? And so he's like, hey, have you guys, we might have to give some thought about you guys going online. I'm like, well, we have a plan, actually. We've already talked about it. And he's like, what? And I said, well, our local staff have been kind of feeding us information. So like, we have a plan, what we would do if we had to go online, but it'll be okay. January 24th, we closed for Chinese New Year. And by that Sunday, I was in a meeting with admin. We were closing. Something was going down. And so we had our Chinese New Year break that week. And then the following Monday, we were online. Everybody.
Wow.
School was closed. And school was closed indefinitely. Everything closed. Everything. So this is what I tell people. So I was nervous, but I wasn't scared yet. We were just like, something weird is happening. But all of a sudden, like in your high rises, you have these big elevator shafts, and the elevators always have some kind of commercial stuff playing on a video, and then they have like posters. And all of a sudden, the posters started changing to like some kind of illness propaganda. And I was like, what's going on, right?
Yeah.
And it was maybe the second week of being home. I had a dog at the time. So we're going out to, no, I had two. I had a puppy. I had Dahe and Taylor at the time. Taylor was the puppy. We go out to take our morning walk, and the gates of the compound are chain closed. That's
what?
I got scared. Chain. And I go to the other end, chained. And I was like, like, that was the first time I got scared.
Wow.
And at my school, most of the teachers had left for Chinese New Year, but because I had dogs, I stayed behind. So there was like 10 or 11 of us out of like 60 faculty from our school that were still in the city. And I messaged them and I was like, my compound's chained. And they're like, mine is too. And then there's some other teachers that were still out for Chinese New Year, and they're like messaging like, what's going on? I'm like, I don't know. Something changed. Like, we're chained in.
Yeah.
So I did find that they had left one entrance open to my compound. And a compound is like a giant apartment complex. There was probably 50 or 60 towers.
Wow.
And then there's like neighborhoods. They all are gated and have some sort of security there. Not really, but so that's what we call neighborhoods, compounds. And I managed to get out of my compound to kind of take a look around and walk the dog so I could get the lay of the land of what was happening in other teachers' compounds and message them. And so the rules kept changing, and they Eventually, we had no deliveries to your house anymore. But the biggest issue for that was we had to have water delivered. Nobody was delivering water. You can't drink the water there out of the tap. It's contaminated. So it's like, well, I need water. We couldn't figure out how to get water. It ended up that I had to buy it from one of those like water machines. But it tasted so heavily of chlorine that I would basically, like, let's say I'd get water on a Tuesday, spend all day boiling it to get the chlorine out, then refilling it, like putting it back into a clean container, and then just like do that all over again. 5 gallons.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Like it was not, you couldn't drink it. It was horrible. And you needed it for cooking, not cleaning, but like cooking and just drinking water. We could still get groceries delivered, but it was like at the end of your compound. So you had to kind of hike out to the end and get your stuff. And then all of a sudden things just kind of settled and we got routines, and the dogs and I walked every day. But in the very beginning, Albert, probably the first 2 weeks, I didn't see anybody except the compound guards. I mean, this is a compound of thousands and thousands of people living in high rises. So I wouldn't see anyone during the day. But at night, this is the trippiest. Because I would message friends and say, I feel like I'm in the Hunger Games, or like I'm in one of those like tween books, like the Maze Runner or something.
Yeah.
Something's going down and I don't know the whole story behind it. But at night, because it's January, so it gets dark super early, all of a sudden, all the lights would go on and all the high rises around me. And I was like, oh my God, there's people here. And I remember I called friends and like, you guys, there's people here in this compound. I don't see these people. I don't see their dogs. I don't see their kids, but they're here. I see them. Like, I thought I was by myself. It was me walking around my neighborhood. There were no buses, no taxis out, nothing. You take the city of 28 million people and then it just goes to zoom, quiet.
Damn.
Quiet, right? So, and it was, we had open reign of every compound though with the dogs. We could go anywhere we wanted to because the guards never saw anybody. So we were like the only people really out except for some random deliveries. So we became friends with all these guards in different compounds. We could go play in all these places. We found this park that was ours. It was ours to play in.
Wow.
For the longest time, we didn't see anyone. And then there was these runners, like probably the third weekend of the closure. All of a sudden, this group of runners were like, no one's dying of COVID. We need our exercise. And it was a group of local runners. And we would check in each other. We'd see each other every morning. A few of them spoke English. So they would be like, you good? You have everything you need? Okay, great. And so it would be me and my dogs in this giant park. Like imagine like Golden Gate Park. It was kind of like that. It would go on. And you'd start at one end of Golden Gate Park and it was yours. Except for this group of runners, like 6 guys. That was it for weeks and weeks and weeks. We ended up going back to school finally in May, end of May. My kids came for 1 week and then it was summer break. We went back the next year and everything was normal. We had to wear masks every once in a while. Like there was a heightened cleaning protocols and stuff, but like 2020, 2021, we went back to school. You know, everything's fine. No outbreaks. 2022, 21, 22, we started the school year off pretty normal, like less restrictions. And then in the spring, January, February, there's a few little outbreaks at different schools and the government had kind of changed their policy about this. Like they would close a whole school, keep everybody there until everyone was tested. And we're talking about preschoolers through college kids or high school kids stuck on campus till 10 o'clock at night.
Wow.
Until they were tested and results came back. And so things started to change. And then the government shut us down in March. And this time we were locked in houses. We didn't have access to food. Like it was a whole different ballgame.
Oh, wow.
And I think that was like that was the turning point of like, this is not sustainable. We were testing every single day. You ran the risk of being taken off to a quarantine center. And they were not, it would like be turning your fairgrounds into giant boarding facilities.
What?
They were putting people in like converted containers that they were turning into like dormitories. But yeah, there would be 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people in a facility, lights on 24/7 for up to 2 weeks until you tested negative. Yeah. So that was a big threat for all of us. And that just sent people stress over the edge. There was a huge exodus of expats from the community that that summer. They just
I
left.
could not picture that. That just sounds so terrifying to like even be around that, know that that's a possibility. Like,
Yeah.
that would terrify me.
Yeah. It was, I had to send my dogs off to boarding because there were some brutal videos that went about. Like if people were found to test positive and they called them, I think, dabes, like people in the white hazmat suit showed up at your door to take you to your quarantine clinic, wherever that was going to be. You know, there were promises that your pets would be taken care of, and that was not true. We saw some horrific things. So I sent my dogs away and just buckled down. But like my neighborhood, my compound at that point, I was in a house. The people in the neighborhood were amazing, so resourceful. There were a few people, residents in the neighborhood, who had connections to the food industry somehow. And so all of a sudden, I mean, within, well, it was about 10 days before we had food provided for us by the government. So people were losing their minds. These people use their resources and connections to basically create this whole market system, and then using WeChat. So they would post out to the community like, hey, I have access to fruits and vegetables today. Buy your lot. So you'd buy your lot, and they would coordinate having the stuff delivered from the farms, or like, you know, they made a connection with a restaurant, and the restaurant would prepare things, or hey, we bought eggs today and something else. Like, so all of a sudden we couldn't rely on the government. They would randomly deliver random food. We were relying on the people within our compound that had these amazing connections that created these businesses. Like they weren't making money off of it. It was just a way to like connect us to the resources that we need. Everything from cleaning supplies to masks to one guy in the compound was out of cigarettes. It was hysterical. Like his plea for like, does anybody have anything? And we're like, hey, now's the time to take up running, you know, like giving him grief. That was the saving grace, was this community of people who came together to help each other despite what's happening around us. Yeah.
Well, that's a beautiful thing. And like, even in those hard times, having that community and be able to like rely on like, hey, we're going to still take care of ourselves and each other, regardless of what the situation in the country is, you know, again, kind of like that lady that asked you, like removing the like politics of the country and like looking at the people within the country. Like there's still people there who genuinely care about each other and want to help each other.
Good, like really good humans. My neighbors in that community really showed their humanity and their care and concern for each other. They took care of each other when other people weren't going to take care of them. And especially there were only, I think there were 2,000 people who lived in that neighborhood, and there were 10 of us that spoke English.
Wow.
So they even like combined their resources to make sure that we had a separate chat group and everything was being translated for us to make sure that we were in the loop. Like just, I'm really looking out for us. It was huge. They were like, hey, we have foreigners in this neighborhood. Do they know what's going on? Like we could translate through some of the apps and stuff, but there were still other things we wanted to know and ask questions about. And they made sure to do that for us.
That's powerful. Yeah. Like, I can't even imagine people in the US don't seem that friendly. Like I barely talk to my neighbors. So I'm like, look at that difference there.
Yeah. Hey, you know, it's something that I miss actually a lot in the city. Because people say, didn't you feel like you were just nobody in a city that big? And I said, no. I said, because it's so condensed, you know, people are out socializing and doing all these things all day long. And I said, I could, because for a while I lived in the city, like the heart of the city. It would be like, I tell people, like I lived in the San Francisco side for a few years, and then I lived in the like East Bay side. So you have to like trek yourself into the city, but all of it was Shanghai.
Right.
And I would get into the city center and easily see people that I knew in the city, like from neighborhood to neighborhood to neighborhood. And I never really felt like the only time I ever felt like 1 in 28 million was the metro, especially like on a Friday night. Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah.
Like then you really know how many people live in the city, but like I don't know, like it felt like home. It was definitely home. You know, what a neat place to live.
Wow. And so you left and you're back in the States. Like how was like readjusting back to the States then?
I moved back to my college town. I'm not going to name it here, but it's sort of a rednecky town. It used to be a hippy dippy place with a thriving downtown and a wonderful university community. And COVID plus a major wildfire that destroyed a neighboring city, so now everybody will figure out what it is, has really changed the dynamics of the city, and not for the good. So a lot of those people came down from the mountains and settled in the valley and haven't left, and they bring their agenda and their politics.
Oof.
And then, the opioid crisis has come to the West Coast. And I tell people, like, it's something for the most part that the West Coast kind of avoided, except for some small pockets in small towns. And it was just kind of a Midwest issue and an East Coast issue here. And we have gnarly stuff going on. So people like to call it a homeless problem up here, but it's not. It's a drug and mental health crisis that's not being addressed. And the solution for the community is just to get rid of them. It's kind of the attitude. And so it's hard. It's hard to see my home county making amazing strides through amazing collaboration of nonprofits down there. I mean, really, really having a positive effect on the issues. And then and to know that the majority of the funding they've gotten to do this has come from the state. So we could get it too up here. They're just choosing not to.
Right.
So
wow.
Yeah, it's definitely not the community I love for so long. And just my college years, like I really loved this community for a good almost 2 decades after I left. But my friends who stayed up here will mark, they know, like about 2010, things started to change and not for the good. And I can see a city that's divided and struggling. And so that hasn't really, some people like, it's been a cultural shock in that way, but it hasn't really helped the healing because I came from a pretty traumatic environment into a traumatic environment in the city that's just, it's been safe because it's familiar, physically familiar. And so it's not like me adapting to something new, but it's definitely a city in crisis.
Yeah.
I'm ready to go. Anytime.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I'm glad you're at least back in the US. Hopefully you can find another place that's not so, I don't know, redneck. Don't recommend Oklahoma.
Well, it's unfortunate because I feel like, I think you find your people anywhere, right? I remember this conversation you and I had when you were getting ready to go to Oklahoma. Do you remember this conversation? When you came into my office pretty like nervous and worried about moving. And I was worried and nervous about you going to Oklahoma. I was like, why is he going there? And you convinced me of family. It's going to be fine. I was like, okay.
Yeah, good luck.
And you came in one day and you said, Stacey, I'm just feeling like pretty anxious and nervous about this move. And I was like, why? I'm trying to be upbeat. Like, you convinced me this is a good idea. So I'm trying to be your cheerleader. And you're like, you wouldn't tell me. And I'm like, Albert, what is it? But to me, like, kind of your face down, you go, I don't know if there's brown people there.
There's not a lot of us here. That's the ruling statement now. Is there's not.
That was like a legit, and I was like, oh shit.
You're right.
All right. And I remember sitting at my computer, and we were like doing the research together and trying to figure out what the demographics were because, like, that's a legit concern. Am I going to see someone like me? Like, am I going to find my people there? And I'd never been to Oklahoma. You're going to make me go to Oklahoma this fall. I will only go because of you. But I was like, oh gosh, I don't want you to be afraid, and I want you to be safe. I want all of my staff to be safe because you were like my kids. Yeah. So I remember sitting at the computer, just like, please let this be a positive experience for him. And I do think you found your tribe. I do think you found your people, and that otherwise you wouldn't have stayed.
I found the love of my life, so that's that's important.
You did, but I remember that was a really big moment. I think important for you to share it, like a big moment for you to feel comfortable enough to say that fear. And then I hope that I responded. I think we had some chuckles.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I was like,
Definitely.
well, Native Americans are from that area.
Yeah.
There's got to be something. Let's get online,
Yeah.
But, it hit a fear I had for you. Is I want you to say.
Well, like, you're right. Like, I have found my tribe, my people, but like, even though, like, just like politics in this state suck. Like, we're close to Texas. There's a lot of influence from Florida here, and so like, it's a pretty like. There's pockets of like diversity and like progressiveness, but it's like there's also like lots of not pockets that are like, hey, we carry our guns and we hate everybody, and like it literally is like we hate brown people and we hate queers and women, and so it's like, oh, okay, well, that's safe.
That part coming home, not that I didn't see it when I was gone, coming home and seeing a country that's hurting more than it did 8 years ago has been hard.
Yeah.
I try not to let it really get me. And I love listening to podcasts and things on my morning walks. And I've had to take weeks off of it because all of a sudden it's like doom and gloom.
Yeah.
And that can really wear on me. And I try to figure out like, okay, where are the helpers in the community? Where can I be a helper, an advocate in the community? What can I do? And so when I do encounter like the woman I encountered this morning, I wasn't sure. She had an agenda. And I was unapologetic about my responses back to her, which I think kind of startled her a little bit. But then she kept saying, well, can I ask you another question? I'm like, I'm an open book. Go for it. And she was like, I want to talk to you more when I come to the park. Like, I find you fascinating. And I was like, okay.
Okay, Sharon, I'll be back every Friday at 10 p.m.
I'm here every day. I'm going to test your small town mentality.
Yeah.
I think I'm not afraid to speak my mind. I'm not afraid to call out hypocrisy. I'm not afraid to be reflective of where I've contributed to it or where I've benefited from it or what I can do to be a voice. So even with the situation here, I do have frustrations with walking through a park and finding people sleeping anywhere and everywhere. And the frustration comes back to we are allowing people to live like that. Like that is shameful as a community. We are allowing our fellow humans, a brother, sister, cousin, mom, aunt, grandma, to live in those conditions, and we all just think it's okay. So I bring that up a lot, and then I like to say it's not a homelessness is a symptom of deeper things. And until we address the root issue, until we as a society make it a priority to address not just the drug addiction, because that is also a symptom of something deeper. And that's coming from child development. Every behavior tells me something. And so these people are telling me they're hurting and we're just letting it go. So I call advocacy in public forums. I've had other people say, like, our park staff will say, oh, I saw you post something the other day and defending that. And I was like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, that'll allow me to let my dogs off leash a little bit longer at the park.
Yeah. Well, and it's just one of those things, like, they pretend that if they ignore it, it won't be addressed. It'll just kind of happen. But it's like, really, if they could put time, energy, and money into resources, getting people connected with those resources, then there really could be a change. It's just that the system's so broken. We're failing people, and it's just like, what can we do at this point?
Yeah. I mean, last night I just said to my mom, I said, Mom, if all these organized religions got together and put their billions of dollars, they could end this crisis. They could end it because they have the money and they actually could have resources. I said, some of the most impactful organizations on this earth are like the it's not intergenerational, interfaith groups. They get together. When interfaiths get together and they put aside all of their like one-upping each other in their religions, but they focus on the humanity because that's at the heart of any religion should be. When interfaith groups come together, they can make a pretty significant impact of things.
Oh yeah.
I just find it so shameful that, like the Mormon church is sitting on billions, the Catholic church is sitting on billions. Like, we know the money is there.
Right.
And they're just hoarding it. And if they just got together and funded, because one of the issues is funding. Like, we don't have enough therapists and psychologists and psychiatrists, and we don't have enough true drug rehabilitation and care centers. We don't have any of that, and it costs money. Well, guess what? We have these organizations that have billions. The evangelical churches, billions.
Yep.
And if they got together and said, this is killing our community, and let's go ahead and fund and put the experts out there. Let the experts do it.
Yep.
And fund the programs, fund the nursing programs, fund the mental health education programs and graduate schools and all that you need to do so that we can address this issue. And I just won't. I said, Mom, I just find that so devastating. I find it devastating because that's what we need. These are humans. There is a guy that's out on the streets, and for summer, I've kind of mostly left him alone. He's figuring things out. But come wintertime, I'm already processing. I mean, I don't know how many sleeping bags I bought him last year and how many pairs of warm socks. I always had changes of warm clothes in my car, and I would see him and I would redress him. I mean, there was one day I passed him. He'd gotten his sleeping bag stolen and he had no hat. It was freezing. I took my hat off my head. I put it on his head. And I said, don't you move. And I was back with supplies for him. And, for people who say to me, well, why would you do that? And I said, because he has a mental health that's never really been addressed. I could almost guarantee that guy was abused horribly as a child and as a young adult. And what he needs is a safe, loving place to live. And the way our community is set up is there's so many rules and regulations about it. There is no place for him that's safe.
Right.
There's no place to support him as a human being, so he's safe.
Yeah, that's so true. So true.
So while he's out there, I'm going to make sure he's warm.
I love that. Love that. So, no. So, I'm going to ask you a question. What's been hella annoying for you here lately? Like, what is something that just gets under your skin?
Besides my mom?
I mean, that could be it.
It's super annoying lately. I don't want to go take us down this rabbit hole, but I think it's the hypocrisy of hypocrisy of our government right now.
Yes.
And knowing how that impacts me as a female, as a woman, and also knowing that in 2016, a bunch of us screamed, "Oh my God, please don't do this," and then we did it anyway. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
And here's the results all these years later of how that's negatively impacting my life. I think that's the thing that just kind of needles me. Also, people are just not nice. You kind of touched on it. It's like you don't kind of even know your neighbors where you live. People are just not nice. When I'm going out in the morning, every morning, I take my dogs for a walk, and I get anxious because I never know what asshole I'm gonna meet.
Yeah.
And they've been straight up assholes that we've encountered, and I have no coping mechanism on how to deal with you other than to want to punch you in the face, shut you up. It's a weird dynamic of when I'm out and about in my community, I'm actually expecting more for people to be jerks than nice.
Yeah.
That's bizarre to me. Albert, that makes no sense to me. It's not how I grew up. You say hi to people. You say, good morning, how are you? Even if you're just superficial, who cares? No one's going to respond to you. Or you say the same, oh, I'm good, how are you? And they don't really care. It's just niceties. It's just saying that. No.
Yeah.
People don't acknowledge each other. I live in the Stepford Live neighborhood. Nobody goes out and hangs out in the front yard. Me. I throw the dogs out there and they lay in the front yard and socialize. But people have all these beautifully manicured yards and there's no community. No one's out there. No one talks to each other anymore. The biggest event we had was Halloween. It was a blast. Handed out candy last year, but I was like, what happened to this is a small town. There's just no sense of community anymore, and people are very selfish into themselves, and I don't understand it.
Yeah. I get it. What you said Halloween, and so what's been hella annoying to me is people that are like, it's only July, it's only August. Why are we thinking about Halloween and like really just complaining about it? Because like, let me tell you, life has been rough, and let us have a little something. Like, why not? I mean, what other holiday is there really from like 4th of July? Which 4th of July? Come on. Like, the country's in a state where people don't
There's
even
also my birthday that's a holiday. So just like,
yes, yes, your birthday. And then Halloween. So like, I'm like, let us have that. Like, I mean, it doesn't hurt nobody. Like, I mean, I just feel like they're jealous because they want like some other stupid holiday, and it's like, no, right now is literally Halloween season. Like,
you know what?
let us have it.
It's a fun kid holiday. I will say, I handed out. I think my mom and I put together like 400 bags, and I handed them out. I'm not joking. In 45 minutes, I was done.
Wow.
The kids were amazing. I had little preschoolers all the way to high school kids. That was the first time back. So I got home last June and Halloween, that I felt like, okay, there's hope for humanity. Like these kids were amazing. They were so great. They were so grateful. And like I even had a whole basket of like allergy friendly stuff with a sign. And I had so many parents being like, thank you. Like, oh my gosh, thank you for doing that. And I didn't have a lot of kids take them. Like, maybe kids with allergies, parents have a different system up, but I thought, I at least want to be that inclusive and acknowledge, like, here's what I have. Here's the ingredients list. I even left the stuff out so parents could make their own decision in case I missed something.
I love that.
And I loved it. And I'm actually really looking forward to it again this year. And I want to do a little bit more decorations. We didn't do a lot of decorations, but I want to do that. And just really get into it this year, because I feel like we just need something that's fun and enjoyable and exciting and is community building. But like, the other night we had like, it's like community night out. It's a national night out or something like that. And my neighborhood did nothing. And I was like, of all events that we should be doing in communities around the U.S. is doing these national nights out and having relationships with our police officers and doing community things to help people reconnect. Depression, people suffering from depression and all these other issues often comes because there's a lack of connection.
Right.
It's a lack of connection to each other and to their community. There's no, they don't feel like they belong. And we know this, and yet it's gotten worse. It's crazy.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh, totally. I know. And it's like, I don't know, like I was at Home Goods or something, and like this lady like looked at me because I've been going to the stores for the last 2 or 3 weeks looking for all the early Halloween stuff. And this lady looks at me and she's like, they already have Halloween stuff out, with like a very nasty attitude. I'm like, yes, ma'am, they do. Do you have a problem with that? And she just kind of like, I kept running into her in every aisle. She just kept looking at me and she looked so like disturbed. But then I found out at the end of it, when I was checking out, she was checking out behind me, and she like had this huge like skeleton going down a slide. I'm like, see, if you didn't have to be so bitter, like you could have just really just admitted that you really were having a good time with the Halloween stuff in July. Like, it's not a big deal.
We need something. We need something positive to look forward to, honestly. And I never thought I would really be excited about Halloween, but I'm already in my head like, I just want something fun, something that's cheerful and fun, because we've had too much like yuck lately, and I don't want to be in that environment. But I mean, I guess the saving grace is like, when I talk to people, other people I've met in the community, they're all having that same little vibe of like, ew, what happened to our community? Like, I'm feeling this disconnect, or like, just kind of feeling yucky lately. I'm like, what's wrong with us? Is this people? I'll share this. Maybe, and okay, we've like pumped COVID through the system. Maybe it's time to like send magic mushrooms through the system. Like, everybody needs a magic mushroom session. Like, reset the brain, and like everything's happy again. Like, maybe we all just need a national magic mushroom day.
Yeah. No more depression.
Yeah, I mean, there's science behind that. They're using it for people with PTSD. Like, this is not a joke, people. Y'all need to have it.
Yep, I agree.
Like, we're gonna have a pasta spaghetti night, and there's gonna be mushrooms in there. And
I love a mushroom spaghetti. So good.
Like, I just feel like y'all need something that's, it's not the little blue pill or whatever you're taking. It's something else. Like, here, try this. Tastes like crap, but it feels.
Nothing big pharma. Like, screw big pharma. Let's take natural. Like,
Yeah. So I mean, I shared that the other day. I'm like, I really do. I said to my mom, she's 76. I'm like, I think the society needs to eat some magic mushrooms. Honestly, take a chill pill. We all need a little bit more of that.
No. So this podcast is called What If, because I love like what if scenarios. So I'm going to ask you a few what if scenarios and see what you would do in these scenarios. So what if you were back in China and word of another lockdown happening was breaking news that morning? What would you do?
Man, I would stick it out. I mean, it's 3.0 for me at this point. Now I'm a rock star. I know what to do. I mean, to be fair, when we had the second lockdown, I was super prepared. I had a full-on pantry. I had pre-ordered all these meals and had them pre-frozen, like my treats. I bought 2 giant pizzas. The pizzas you pay $30 for here are junk compared to the giant pizzas you get there. New York style pizzas, I bought 2 of them. I pre-frozen. I was ready. So like, even though we didn't like get food, I had my creature comforts in my house.
Okay.
I would just prepare, I think, and then I would game on. I know what to do. Like I went through an easy one and then a shitty one. I think I can figure this out. I would just go head on to it.
Head on. Love it.
You have a choice. I think that's the other thing is like, what am I gonna do? Try to leave? I can't. So I'm gonna take my experience that I've had for the last 2. And I'm going to see what game this one is and try to work around it. I think if anything, going through those experiences, I've learned to be really resilient. I've also learned to say, like, I don't have the capacity for that right now. I've set up some different boundaries, but like, I know I'm super resilient. I know that. And I figured a lot of stuff out in a country where I didn't know the language or the culture. So bring it.
Love it. All right. What if you were running a summer camp and a deranged killer begins slaughtering your campers while you are all finally asleep at night?
You know this is part of like the nightmare dream we have, right? My Hannah story.
Yes.
Are we up at a Memorial Park again? Where are we?
Let's say it's on for the first time.
Okay, well, I'm going to the campfire that hopefully you guys didn't piss on and completely wipe out for me. And I'm gonna get a big old like branch on fire, and I'm just gonna start like setting things on fire. I'm gonna set the person on fire. Like, I'm gonna defend my kids tooth and nail and my kid and my staff. Like, I'm gonna go down. I'm not gonna run away. But like, I'm thinking I'm like gonna get the barbecue supplies because we always bring the big sharp knives to cut the watermelon. So I've got like a knife in one hand and then like a piss-soaked torch in the other. And I'm gonna like fight it out. Hopefully you guys are still alive. Are you guys alive?
Yes, in this scenario.
Okay. I'm rallying the troops, man. Like, we're gonna like corral the kids. Maybe we're shoving them in the gross bathroom that's full of cobwebs and spiders and bats.
I'm still terrified of that. Like, I went camping for this like LARPing event, which total nerd, but not my thing anymore. Went one time, and I kid you not, the bathrooms were the scariest thing. There were all these spiders and weird creatures in the corners. Nope.
It's always a little bit creepy. And were you on the trip where there were bats in there? Was that with you guys?
Yes, there were bats in the
bathroom. No, I mean, I'm going to rally all of you guys, and we're going to take out the killer. That's what we're going to do because it's part of the story anyway.
Yeah, we'll do it.
Our scary movie one day.
We will do it. I love that.
Come off the highway.
Help! Yeah. Oh, I love that. All right. So moving on to our next game. This is going to put you in a little bit of a hot seat. So I hope you are prepared to get uncomfortable. So this is called song association. So I'm going to give you a word. You're going to associate it with the song. So like, let's say I say candy. Then you have 15 seconds to sing a song with the word candy in it. So there's only 6 words, and I'll give you each one, give you 15 seconds each one. Let's see what you say.
Oh, dear.
Are you ready?
Okay, I'm gonna try.
So let me see. 15 seconds on the time on the watch.
Anyone?
The first word is fight. So 15 seconds, go.
Fight. Oh. Oh. Oh, I don't think it says fight, but I can only think of Katy Perry's Roar. Is there a fight in that?
Time. All right, good try. I was thinking of what's that song? Fight for the Right to Party.
Oh, the Beastie Boys.
Yes. All right, next song.
I'm
The
losing.
word. This is hard when you're in the spot. You keep, like your brain just like what?
Yeah.
All right, the next one is down. 15 seconds, go.
Oh, Albert, I suck at this. What on earth? Down. I have no idea.
Time.
I'm thinking of a Sublime. There's got to be like I gotta get my phone out and be like down. Where's the lyrics? I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna get my phone out and cheat on it.
All right, and you have to sing it though. You can't just say the name, so you have to sing the line.
I'm cheating. Give me one song.
So the third one is party.
Party?
15 seconds, yeah, go.
Oh, songs. Party in the USA. Party in the
Sing it.
USA. Hey.
All right, I'll give you that. Miley Cyrus. All right, let's see. Fourth one is hate. 15 seconds, go.
I'm cheating. Oh, what's the song about hate? Creep, Radiohead. I don't know that song. Jeez, someone just said they hate
Time.
this world. I have no idea.
All right, let's see the fifth one. That word is girl. 15 seconds for girl, go.
Oh, it's a Beck song. Hey, my son, a girl. Hey, my son. I'm not saying it right.
I believe you. Good job.
Girl.
So what? It's called what?
It's called "Girl" from Beck.
Girl. Oh, there you go.
I saw her with the black tongue tied. I like Beck, even though it's like he's super artist.
Yeah.
Okay.
Final one. Let's see what you get. So you have 2 out of 6 so far. So let's see if you can at least get 3 out of 6. The final one is night. 15 seconds, go.
Can I make it Nightingale?
If you can sing it.
Nightingale, sing us a song of a
Ding,
love
ding, ding, ding.
that once belonged. Nightingale, tell me your one of my favorite songs by Natalie Merchant, maybe?
Okay.
Love that song.
So you got 3 out of 6. That's a good score.
I'm terrible at music. Okay, I'm gonna say a confession here. Okay, like they say, like your music life ends in like your 20s. Like you always revert back to your like 20s. I'm like, there's a lot of modern music that I don't know, and also living in China, like I was never good at Spotify. I could kind of get Pandora. You had a VPN, so I feel like I lost on like 8 years of music. To be fair, there's a lot of stuff out right now that I was like, what is that person saying? They're just mumbling. Like that is not fun. But then I've like refallen in love with like Harry Styles. Like I think he's so fun.
Oh no, not Harry. I don't like Harry.
Oh, there's some stuff about him that I just really enjoy, and then there's other stuff I'm like, if I have to listen to that Selena Gomez like "Calm Down" song, I'm going to punch somebody in the face.
That's fair.
The worst song ever. So
Calm
like,
down.
I feel like I'm stuck in like 90s music, and I'm like I've lost. And I think because I'm not working with you guys. You know, when you work with a younger generation, you adapt and you listen to their music when they're coming in the teen center or during camp training.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, I miss you guys so badly because I don't know any new music at all.
I love music, so I stay on top of it pretty every Friday. That's like my ritual. It's like, or no, Thursday at midnight. I'm like, all right, what songs came out? So like I start like downloading it, and then I'm like, yes, new music. So
I was so good at it. So I will take any kind of lessons on how to properly use Spotify and learn about new music because I miss it. Like being in China, there's a lot of live music that doesn't come, partly because they have to get a visa. So if they've said anything negative, their visas will be canceled. So I saw 2 artists while I was there. Katy Perry came at one point, but I didn't see him. I saw Metallica, go figure. Yeah,
really?
in Shanghai, that was fun.
That's
and
cool.
then I saw an artist who did an acoustic show, and I can't think of his name. Damien Rice came in. So
Okay.
I miss live music. You know, like I love going to concerts. I used to love going to outside lands, spending the entire 3 days just soaking in all the diversity of music. Like I love all that. I'm at a loss. And now I live in redneck country.
You're a cowgirl now.
There's not even good radio stations up here.
Oh, no.
So like I'm relearning how to stream like Odyssey, and I do have my Spotify on my phone and just taking the time to just listen and appreciate new music. And I mean, to be honest, like I had a lot of heartbreak while I was gone. Like we lost Prince when I was gone. We lost like the Foo Fighters. Taylor Hawkins from Foo Fighter really like got me in the gut because my Taylor's named after him, you know? Like I love the Foo Fighters. So there was a lot of like kind of loss being gone of like, I'm not gonna be able to see that artist.
Yeah.
Oh no, you know, like I didn't get to go see Elton John before he's officially retired. I never got to go see even like I wanted to go see Fleetwood Mac one more time. You know?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of like mourning like this music that I love for so long, and then also knowing like there's a giant hole in my life of like I know new artists.
Yeah, that's hard. I love music, but I think being back, you'll be able to get back into it. I'm not a Spotify user, but I know they have like use Apple Music, and so I usually go on like this Twitter that's called like Pop Craze, and it puts like all the modern like pop artist music out, and so I go download that, and then I go into like the New Music Daily playlist, and it like has like all the new music. And I think Spotify does something like that too.
People told me just to do Apple Music, and then I was like, well, it still makes me mad that I downloaded all this music, and it's not mine, that it goes away. Like all these downloads I spent all this money for, I should own that. No, I don't own that.
You should, yeah. I don't download any music because I don't have to pay for it. My brother pays for the account monthly, and so we all just kind of can like listen to music, and like it never goes away.
I need to do the Apple Music. P.S. That nephew of yours.
Yes, I love it. He's so precious. So freaking precious.
Yeah, super cute. I knew he was going to be cute. Those two were too cute. Of course, they're going to make somebody cute.
But it either goes like sometimes they'll make like people make like ugly babies. Like there are ugly babies out there. Just putting that out there.
That is true.
Unfortunately, there are. But Stacey, it's been such a pleasure having you, and I could talk to you for days. But people probably are like, "All right, y'all."
Okay, before you go, I'm going to share this one nugget with you because I know you love it because it's a celebrity. Nick Cannon, you know, he's got like 1 million kids, right?
1,000,001, apparently.
Guess what? I've actually met one of his kids, and I actually met one of the baby mamas. I didn't even know it till today.
Where at?
Right here in my small town. Yes.
Was she passing through, or was she live there?
It's from here.
Really?
Nicest girl ever. Nicest girl ever. I had no idea. And yesterday I cooted the baby, and then the grandma made a few more comments, and I was like, what on earth is she talking about? So I just happened to look up like Nick Cannon's baby mamas and babies, and I was like, holy moly. Yeah.
Wow.
So anyway,
wow. That's crazy.
Like, who are these baby mamas? And I was like, oh my God, the nicest girl on earth, actually, with a really nice family, with really cute kids. Never made the connection.
Huh.
Isn't that funny?
That's wild. We had in summer camp we had a daughter of a rapper in our camp, and that was pretty cool.
In Birmingham?
Yeah.
Who's that?
Yeah. She was the daughter of E40.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we have baseball players and everything like that, but we never like, you just never know. But anyway, I just thought I would drop that on you today.
Yeah.
Like, I met a Nick Cannon baby mama. I don't
like that's you better hang out with her and be like, hey,
baby.
Yeah, that's gold.
Super cute. Anyway, I love you very much. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, listeners, it's been a pleasure having Stacy on. I definitely look forward to having you listen to future episodes. If you like this, go on Apple Music, Spotify, like, rate, subscribe, share, tell everyone in your family to go listen to this. Also, you can email us at itsgivingwhatif@gmail.com. If you want to donate a coffee to us, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/itsgivingwhatif. And if you want to leave us a voicemail or ask for advice, you can go to www.speakpipe.com/itsgivingwhatif. From us to you, hope you all have a great night or day or evening, morning, whatever y'all are having. Have a great one.
Thanks.
Thank you.